Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the City Council, City of Lakewood, Colorado, on December 10th, 2018, council chambers at 7 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Paul?
Here.
Johnson? Vincent? Here. Beta?
Here.
Franks?
Here.
Royball?
Here.
Gutwein? Here. Skilling? Here. Harrison? Here. Abel? LeBure?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Want to welcome everybody to council chambers. I appreciate you coming out this evening, or if you're checking us out online, or maybe a later date. If you do have a phone, I'd ask that you turn it on silent, and we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. We'd also like to take a moment to remember our 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Item 4, presentation, Friends of Paha.
So this is always a great evening when we get to celebrate and hear a little bit from our friends. So I'm going to invite Friends of Paha board members down. They're already right behind me. Alima Kane, who's our president, Chelsea Turner, Sean Lopp, and Kelsey Mang to join me here. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, stand wherever you're comfortable. Hello. I guess I should get closer. I'm gonna make you guys hold that. It is a big check. Literally a big check. Thank you for having us again this year. Friends of Paha is a nonprofit board. We're an all-volunteer board, and we raise funds for Camp Paha. We provide scholarships, which we call camperships, to families that can't afford to send their children and young adults to camp. We also have, in the past, provided some additional funds for supplies that could be used in when we have overraised and under promised to camperships. This year we did something a little bit special for the staff at camp, and we gave a little extra money to help make their days a little brighter. Camp is a lot of fun. It's also a lot of work, and so we wanted to support the staff that provide such good service to our campers. This year we funded 21 camperships, which is the most that we funded in the last 5 years, so we're really proud of that. And it's the third year in the row that we haven't had to turn away anybody for funding, so that's been really great. We have annual fundraisers, so stay on the lookout. We do publish those in City of Lakewood, the newsletter and things like that. So we love your support. Thank you, Mayor Paul, for your continued support. We would like to present you with a check for $38,890 this year.
All right. That's incredible. Well, it's a big check. So I'll show that off here. But this is really cool, and I say this is really special. I want to thank you all and your organization and the hard work that you do for these kids, for these campers. It's a unique program, probably one of a kind. And what I've really learned, I said this last year, but I learned the importance of respite care and an opportunity for these kids to go and play and act like every other child does in our city, and their parents get to know that they're safe and that they're being loved and cared for. So it's an incredible honor to accept this check on behalf of the City Council. We appreciate you and everything you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I have public comment. And I'll I'll read those names from the public comment roster and ask that you line up on both sides of the room in the aisle near the podium. We don't have a ton tonight. If you have not signed up to speak, please stop by the clerk's desk right here on your way down and sign the roster. This will help ensure that we keep good records, and your contact information may be used by staff to help answer any questions that you might ask. Please note, in order to keep our meetings from running too late into the night, I'll ask those of you who wish to agree with a certain speaker rather than coming to the podium and repeating what was already said, perhaps be kind enough to stand at the appropriate time and say you support. You'll have 3 minutes. This little box here will go green. Is it working? Is our timers? So we're working tonight. Till 2.5 minutes, and then it'll go yellow. And when your time is up, it will go red, and I'll politely ask you to wrap it up. So with that, I will start with, is it Terry Harrison, Larry Harrison? Come on down. Is that a T? There we go. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I represent the Model Railroad Group that is at the White Fence Farm, which unfortunately is closing. The reason I am here is that we are going to be looking for a new location to reestablish our group. We used to be down at Union Station for 35 years before that was converted into a hotel. What we are looking to do is to continue what we have started over at the White Fence Farm, which we have been encouraged to come before council by members of your community. They want us to stay in your community. We have some members over here, and what we would like to do is 2 things, if it's possible. One, we would like to start a dialogue with the city to see if there's some place that would be appropriate for us to reestablish our layout, which would allow the community to come. Now, I know that there's the Railroad Museum, but that's a different setup altogether. The other thing is that I've been advised to talk to this lady's secretary to invite the entire council to come to our layout either on a Saturday night or a Sunday night from about 3 o'clock until 7 to see what we're all about, so you can see how we engage with the community. Because I believe firmly that we have something to offer to the city of Lakewood. You already have Caboose Hobbies up at the other end of Alameda. You can't miss it. You've got the trolley over at the Federal Center. As I understand, there is a caboose somewhere in Lakewood that you would like to possibly go somewhere. What better way to get more people into the community for families to come for a bit of time, for all as long as they want, to come to a model railroad layout that is interactive with them. So that is why I'm here before you right now. And I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I do want to establish and plant our brand before you so that you understand where we are and what we can offer you. So with that being said, do I speak? Who's the secretary I speak to?
Yeah, we'll follow up. We'll get through public comment, and I'll come back to that, and we'll make sure that we get you to the right folks.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for
your
coming
time.
out. Alan? And then I have Lynn, John Henderson, Allie Wittenberg, and Royal. You want to speak, Royal? Okay, I'll take you off. No Royal. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Paul. I'm Alan Heald, live in Ward 4, and City Council members, hello. I'm here tonight to say thanks. I learned a lot listening to the debate at the the November 26th regular City Council meeting about the process of filling volunteer positions on boards and commissions. And I want to say thanks for the education. It was informative to me to learn how recent changes in policy and procedure impact selections of citizens and how long they can serve. That's been an issue, I think, for a lot of people. And to learn that the selection committee is open to public input before a vote. I didn't know that. That was informative. Thank you. And to learn how many former city council members have continued their service to Lakewood through volunteer service on a board or a commission once they left council. I came away with from the meeting with a clear sense, that when truth and facts defeat partisan attacks, it makes me feel better about city council. I also came away with a clear sense of who was naughty and who was nice when it came to making decisions based on facts. You know, the challenge of leadership, as I see it always, is to tune out personal biases, and we all have those, of course, myself included. And to try to focus on facts and fundamentals and not make decisions along political posturing and political lines. So tonight I'm speaking to say thanks to staff and thanks to those of you on council who kind of rose above the din and continued, along a path of high ideals. And I hope that next year, as you look forward and as you steer the good ship Lakewood into fact-filled seas once again, that you can make the sound decisions based on the facts. I look forward to a continuation of navigating with truth as your compass. And there's a lot of things on the plate for next year. Some of the things that I know we're all concerned about are growth issues and infrastructure needs, police department attrition, building more transparency into the budget, getting our lone taxpayer money back from those who are intent on treating the money as a gift, campaign finance reform, standing up for Lakewood's rights under the IGA with Morrison, and it just goes on and on. You know, you have a lot on your plate. And with all of this on your collective plate, it's going to be a busy new year, so I want to wish you a very happy and relaxing holiday, and I'll see you next year. Thank you for your service.
Lynn?
Hello, Mayor and City Council members.
Welcome.
Good to see you. I just wanted to speak up about the loan to the 3 dynos. I understand there was a $9 million loan to them regarding development of the C470 interchange near Dino Ridge. And I think that, number one, residents should have input before such decisions are made to loan developers funds, significant amount of money. It's important that we have transparency and that we have citizen input. And secondly, since this is already apparently made, this loan, before any construction occurs, I'd like to request that, or express my opinion that they should repay that loan before any construction is done there. I think because of the process not being right with the citizen input, that this money should be repaid. I also think that Landmark is, I believe, listed among one of the top 8 in the world for paleontology value, and I think it's important that we, if possible, preserve that area. So, but I also believe that the loan should be repaid before any construction. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Good evening. I wanted to address, in the brief moment that I have here, a decision that I shared with you all in the materials regarding the Big Sky District, the sanitation district issue, the question as to whether or not Big Sky could unilaterally change the purpose and expand the boundaries. And last time we spoke, I said, I've given you my materials, Kristen Bear has given you her materials, and one of the keynotes of their presentation was that they have my characterization, an unlimited ability to provide services outside the territory. I cited to you all, and of course they had an opportunity to review it as well, the Sand Hill decision that was decided in 2016. A very important case decided by our Court of Appeals. The developer took it up on appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to hear it. So the end of that conversation is the Court of Appeals decision. And in that case, it was a similar situation where the developer had permission, had a service plan to develop residential and commercial. They didn't do it. Just like in our case, Big Sky had permission to develop residential and commercial, and they haven't done it. Sand Hill in that case then went outside the district and provided additional services, including water service, to some areas that had drilling and so forth. Similarly, in this case, Big Sky is proposing through that IGA to provide sewer service outside the district, not build residential, provide sewer service. And the court in that decision said no. Said that is a material modification of the plan. You can't do that. And the language they used was very specific, and referring again to the Christian Bear memo when they basically said, if the service plan doesn't say we can't do it, then we can. No, it's the other way around. The service plan has to say you can do it. And that's what this decision says as well. Quoting from page 9 of the decision, special districts possess only those powers expressly conferred upon them. These are 3 Court of Appeals judges saying, in essence, with respect to the service plan, if the service plan doesn't say you can do it, you can't. They're outside the boundaries. Looks like I'm almost out of time.
Yes, you are.
I'd refer you also to pages 13, if I may, and 16, where the Court of Appeals basically says what the developer did there and what Big Sky is doing here is absurd.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Wittenberg? Do I see Ally? Okay. I do not see Ally. All right, anybody else who didn't have a chance to sign up, wish to speak? Okay. So I'll address a couple things. We appreciate our trained folks for coming out. I know you've had a challenged road to find yourself here in the city of Lakewood, which you're thrilled that you're here in the city. And I know that there's a lot of different entities looking and trying to figure out some opportunities. I know West Colfax Community Association and Bill Marino has engaged and is trying. So you have the correct information. I think our deputy city manager is giving me the yes. We can start with that. And then we can also let the community know that you are looking for a spot in the city of Lakewood and remain in the city of Lakewood, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you. Yep. And then I'll just address one other comment. Ms. Judson, you had mentioned, I do believe this process was a public process. Ms. Judson? So I just want to address your comments. You had mentioned the dollars that were issued to build the interchange on C-470 in Morrison, C-470 in Alameda. So those dollars, $3 million did come from the city, and I think $6 million came from the county. Then after those dollars, after the bridge was built, there was an opportunity to create a reimbursement agreement with the developers. All of that did go through a public process. It did, however, predate everybody on this council, but it does reference city council minutes and an action by a previous council and mayor to approve those. So if that's of help to you. So we can have that conversation if you want to afterwards. Council is engaged as well as the county. All right. Ms. Hodson, executive report.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, the Nike store at Denver, Colorado Mills is open, or soon to be open. It might be this weekend. So that's really good news for holiday shopping. So please shop at the Nike store and shop often. And I can tell you what size shoes I wear. If you're
It opened
there.
last week.
Yeah, that's right, last week. Thank you for that, Mayor. On January 7th, I wanted to make it really clear. So this is a study session. That's our next meeting, January 7th. And for this meeting, it's going to be a joint study session with the Planning Commission. And during that time, we will have a conversation and a presentation by Jay Hutchison, our Director of Public Works, and he'll be addressing construction noise limitations near residential areas. That was a request that came from Councilor Franks. We will also have a conversation around planning areas. The agenda today says Union Corridor. We're going to include, as we had agreed, all of the planning areas that are underway to give you a status of those, and that will include Union Corridor. And finally, as you know, the development dialogue has it's included about 5 focus areas, I believe, 5 focus areas. One which is called the mixed use area, has already been discussed numerous times, and it's ready to come for a recommendation. So the subject of mixed use will be presented to you as a result of the development dialogue in concert with the recommendations from the Planning Commission, and that'll be a part of that conversation. As you know, the development dialogue is continuing, and I believe the next topic is, what is it, Counselor? The building design. So that's something you can look forward to as committee meetings on that particular subject. So that is our next meeting, January 7th. Internally, the staff from every department and every division is working on our 2019 strategic planning goals. This is where our employees identify the objectives that will align with City Council goals. We're having what's called a crossover meeting tomorrow morning with every division manager, and I think there's almost 40 of them, and they all will give updates and talk about what their individual goals are for their division. So that'll be really always interesting. We do those quarterly, and we have a broad anticipation toward your planning session, because we will be aligning our strategic goals to the planning goals that come from City Council out of your planning session on January 27th. So that's how this all falls together, and we're really anxious to have that information from you. Again, January 27th is your council planning session over at the Heritage Center, and there is an email that's going to be sent out shortly in the next couple of days from Councilor Vincent and Councilor LeBure, which will give you more details as it relates to that session. And finally, I personally want to extend a very special holiday wishes to each of you, and encourage you all to spend time with people that you love. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both. So did you have something else to add? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions and first reading ordinances. Resolutions, which there are none. So we'll skip to first reading ordinances, appear on the agenda only for the purpose of setting future public hearing dates and ordering the newspaper publication of the proposed ordinance. No public comments will be heard this evening on first reading ordinances. The public will have the opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinances during the scheduled public hearings on the dates set tonight by City Council. Any council member may request an item on the consent agenda be removed for separate discussion and action under general business. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
The consent agenda consists of items 7 through 10. Item 7, Ordinance O-2018-21 to rezone land located at 6600 West 13th Avenue and 1275 Newland Street, Lakewood, Colorado 80214, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado. Item 8, Ordinance O-2018-22, repealing and replacing Chapter 2.54 of the Lakewood Municipal Code concerning campaign and political finance in municipal elections. Item 9, approving minutes of City Council meetings. City Council regular meeting August 27, 2018. City Council regular meeting October 22, 2018. Item 10, accepting minutes of the boards and commissions. Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community Executive Committee meeting October 3, 2018. Board of Appeals October 9, 2018. And Lakewood Advisory Commission Full Commission meeting October 17, 2018.
Thank you very much. I'll now open, no, I won't, sorry. These are just ordinances. I'll now ask for a motion.
Mayor Paul, I move for the approval of council minutes for acceptance of the minutes and boards and commissions. Order all ordinances introduced in first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearing set for the date included in the ordinance, all of which are included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second, and just two quick things. We did receive an email today with a couple corrections on the campaign finance clerical. We can address those at second reading. And if there were folks who wanted to speak on the ordinances tonight, this is just, again, to set that hearing, and you'll have the opportunity to give public testimony in a couple weeks at the second hearing. So we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Please cast your votes. And that passes 9 ayes, 0 nays. All right, moving along to general business. Counselor Abel had a request that has been pulled. So who is up next? Counselor Franks, are you pulling yours as well? Is that what you said earlier?
I did not have one. They moved mine to January already.
Okay, so Counselor Skilling and LeBeer then.
Ready?
Sure. Have at it.
So this is the, I mentioned this a little over a month ago, and I've mentioned it several times. The Counselor Franks had brought forward the ask that we review the construction ordinance that we have in place now. That's the one-size-fits-all, that doesn't really address what happens when you build residential, or when you build anything right up against residential neighborhoods. And so that's what she had brought forward for January 7th, which we will be discussing. Along those same lines, we have other, I think, ancillary, if not complementary topics as well. Those being having what I said in this form here, whether or not we need to increase the notification area. Right now it's 500 feet when you're having a major product or a project. So increasing it from 500 feet to say 2,500 feet to let everybody know that this is coming. Certain areas, 500 feet doesn't make any sense, and you need the 2,500. And then also what we'll do about community meetings and whether or not we need to increase the requirements of having developers have community meetings. We've seen some positive results when that's happened. We've seen those earlier this year. I can never remember the name of the project, but we had the townhouse project where there was they had an architectural scheme they were going with, and then the community said that doesn't match our neighborhood, and they came back and totally switched it. And then they also had some shadowing, so they lopped off a top level on some of the perimeter units, and that was a direct result of the community meetings. So the more, and I know this firsthand in our little neighborhood, that if you had more meetings, it would probably be productive as opposed to not having them. And so I think right now we don't have very stringent requirements on what a community meeting looks like and what you must have. So whether that means bringing in more people from planning in there, actually making it part of the file, who knows what it is, but that would be the discussion of having more meetings and more notifications. And I think it goes well with Counselor Frank's topic of doing the construction hours.
Okay, Counselor LeBeer.
Well, my first thought was if this was something that we might want to take a look at in the Development Dialogue Committee, but it sounds like you already have a plan to potentially have it at the January 7th meeting, but that's a suggestion.
Ms. Hodson, I have a question for you on this regarding just preparation. Is that timeline doable for you for January 7th?
To include this request with what's already being discussed, sure, we can do it then if that's what council wants.
Okay. Counselor Franks?
What I wanted to add is it may behoove us to, during that discussion, kind of open it up to say whether sometimes additional meetings aren't really what the community's they're just looking for advance notice of things coming. And so maybe some type of a requirement where we have like a project schedule, which lets people know when certain activities, that would tamp down a lot of some of the frustration of, you know, things like heavy dirt moving, which causes dust and other things, just knowing it's coming so you can plan kind of around that. So I don't see it as being a big add to the 7th meeting. I think it could be folded in really nicely.
Counselor Vincent?
Yes, I think there's some things that we need to look at and probably have had for a long time. One is the 500-foot requirement, but to go from 500 to 2,500, I kind of need a visual around that. I don't know how much more that would increase it, because my fear about that is that oftentimes you would get into other neighborhoods, I mean, further away from where the project is taking place. And when that happens, then you can lose some of the neighborhood input and get more outlying input, which is not necessarily bad, but it's impacting the neighborhood and their zoning. So if we can look at, like if we could look at a map maybe perhaps and see where it would go from 500 to 2,500 as an example, and then have some discussion around that.
Okay, so is there consensus to go forth? All right, so we'll go forth with that. And council did, I mean, these are all great questions. We wrestled with this at the last adoption of the zoning ordinance. When you do go 2,500 feet out, what does that look like? And what is, that sweet spot? I think we tried to do that. So we'll go forth with that. Councilor LeBaire, yours is up next.
Sure, mine is about potentially doing a blight study on the Sheridan corridor. I'm hoping that potentially at our January 7th meeting, since we'll be talking about all the different neighborhood plans and corridor plans, et cetera, that we can also talk about the potential for a blight study on Sheridan, and what that looks like, whether we need to, if it's deemed that we should move forward on that, whether we should be convening the LRA or sort of what the next steps are for that. So I'm hoping I can get your support to add that to this discussion.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to direct that to Ms. Hodson again. This is a little bit more, there's probably a lot more to this. Is that time frame a doable time frame?
Certainly. I mean, there are certainly some similarities in terms of the fact that this is another geographic area. When we start talking about urban renewal, however, the conversation gets a little more complicated. So I do think, or I would recommend that this topic gets folded into the overall conversation as we talk about the plans and the status thereof. This one in particular may need a little more attention and a little more time as we go along. So I was just thinking I'll have our economic development representative here along with our planning staff. And then we'll kind of chart out what next steps are on that particular site if you agree to go forward with the Sheridan effort.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. And I would add to that, I know the counselors who do border Sheridan have been anxious to have some sort of cohesion with our neighbors to the east, which is the city and county of Denver. So if we did go forward with something along those lines, I think it'd be a good opportunity to potentially bring in the city and county of Denver. And if you're looking at a business improvement district, I don't know how that works with a shared city, but that's an interesting corridor for us because Denver takes over right in the center of Sheridan. Councilor Franks?
Some of what I would be looking to understand is in the area, are those property owners in support of something like this? Because I think, at least my understanding, which could be incorrect, is once it has a blight designation, that opens it up to all types of activities that maybe those property owners would welcome, but maybe some wouldn't. So I would want to understand the legal ramifications of doing the study and then the outcome maybe saying, yes, it matches those legal definitions. What does that mean for folks? Because then that sets a stage that we need to be cognizant of what we're setting the stage for. Thank you.
Councilor Harrison?
Almost ditto, but with one additional thing that I would like to add and talk about. If we could just get a little bit of a white paper that would describe what the process is, how long it normally takes, and potentially what some of the outcomes could be, because I think we need just a little precursor before because this, my experience has been, is not a quick process. It takes a while to get this done. We can start the conversation, but there's a lot of parameters with this. So.
Can I respond? So I would suggest that for the meeting on the 7th that we do an overview on what exactly that would mean, and to see if we get the go forward before we spend the time on a white paper, which will really need to be a concentrated focus on that particular area, because there are going to be so many questions, and you're going to really need to feel comfortable with this process as it relates to the Sheridan corridor. So I would suggest we touch it first on the 7th, make sure people want to go forward, and then we come back with a white paper so that you can be really informed and educated.
Great, thank you. Councilor LeBear?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I definitely think as we move forward, it'll warrant its own study session, et cetera. I just wanted to sort of wrap the overall conversation into the January 7th discussion, simply because we were going to do sort of an overview of all the different plans that already exist and that we're proposing. So that's sounds exactly like what I was hoping for. So thanks.
So is there consensus on that? All right, so we'll move forward with that. Ms. Hodson, do you need any clarity on either of those last two, or are you good?
I actually think we're good.
Good. All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you very much. Anything else under general business? Councilor Skilling?
In preparation for January 7th, we have the mixed-use proposals that are coming up, which is Planning Commission as well. So that took us 7-8 meetings, something like that, a long time to come up with these proposals. So I would just ask that between now and January 7th, that everybody just kind of look at those proposals. If you have any questions, ask your ward mates who are there. That alone, just that conversation could take hours upon hours, let alone everything else that's scheduled that night. But if ahead of time, if anyone has any questions, direct them towards me or whoever on the committee, and we can get them answered, and we can go through this. Because we also have Planning Commission's own proposals as well, which are somewhat parallel, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So that would be my only comment for that night.
Thank you. Councilor Bida?
Quick question, is there a final document that is available now that we can take a look at?
I think it'll be probably a week or two out before that would be put into the packets.
I can work on something. I can get with Travis and I can go through the minutes. I think I can come up with something, send it out to the committee, not to do any voting or anything like that, but just say, here's what they are and if there's any clarifications. But I will take the laboring oar on that to make sure we have a concise document.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox, or was that?
Yeah, no, we do still, and I'm looking to the clerk on this, we do still have some lead time for that meeting, although the holidays intervene, but there's time to get it into a packet.
Great.
I'm looking at the dates right now for the January 7th study session. The items are due by they'll be posted on the website December 28th, so they'll be due on Wednesday the 19th because of the holidays.
Great. Anything else on their general business? All right. We'll move into council reports. I'll start on my left. Councilor LeBear.
No report other than happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Councilor Harrison.
A big thank you to the Lakewood Symphony Orchestra and the Colorado Mormon Chorale for putting on a wonderful Christmas concert that was held. It was their gift to the Lakewood community. It was fantastic. If you didn't make it this year, please be sure to put it on your calendar for next year, because I'll tell you, it was quite the gift. So thank you.
Councilor Skilling. Councilor Gutwein.
Yes, thank you. We had our second Ward 5 meeting of the month on Saturday, and this is also kind of along the lines of one of the proposals about having more meetings when there's a new development in a neighborhood and how that can help. So now we've had Metro West Housing Solutions has come out to Ward 5 4 times in the last couple of weeks, I think. They went to 2 HOA meetings, and then we had them at two different ward meetings just to engage in conversation about how construction and parking and looks and landscaping and all of the various different things that 2 neighbors want to talk about. So I really want to thank both our neighbors and Metro West Housing for the time and the respectful dialogue, and working to be good new neighbors to each other. And that is all. Thank you.
Counselor Vincent?
Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. Just a couple of things, it's, one, it's, I guess, a request. I would like the zoning committee, that's not exactly a report, but we are going to have some discussion about some new developments. With those developments, there always seems to be some discussion and some consternation around the parking issues. It's woefully inadequate. We've been talking about it. So my request is that I would like the zoning committee to really please start reviewing that. I mean, Ward 2 has a page and a half of proposals that may be coming through, which is going to impact. So, but the other thing is, it's been kind of a rough week for, did that make sense? Okay. It's very good. Thank you for your response. The other thing is it's been kind of a rough week for Lakewood, but there were two things, and I hope I'm not stepping on another person's toes here, but there's been a couple of very good things that have happened. One is at Alameda High School. They were the recipient of the Channel 9 News Cool Kids Award, which I thought was terrific. And then Lakewood High School, they, on their shuttle, the last shuttle that went up, they have an experiment on how to grow plants and food in space. And for those of you who may have missed it, that's a wonderful opportunity. It's the only one, and they have just rocked that. So I wanted to mention that those are two great things I think that are happening in the neighborhood.
Great. Counselor Bida?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple of items. First of all, I want to mention we had a grand opening on Friday. The mayor attended with me. It's called the East Sports Arena. It's over off of Jewel in Florida. Grand opening, and they've got quite a facility there. They're part of the, as I understand it, the N 3rd Street Gamers, whatever that is. Admittedly, I'm trying to learn all this. It's all new to me, and I'm looking forward to going over there and asking them to show me the easiest and simplest game so I could try it out. But they're really well. I just want to say we're really welcome to our community, and they've invested a lot of money in the facility, and so we wish them the best of luck. I wanted to comment also on the decision making process, because I think it might be a good time, since we've got a few minutes, just to kind of give you a little thought on how things sometimes work. As lawyers, and I'm sure Counselor would agree with this, as lawyers we're taught how to argue to the court, and the first thing they tell you is argue the law. Always argue the law first and foremost. If the law's not on your side, then you argue the facts. If the facts aren't on your side, then you argue public policy. And hopefully one of those will resonate with the judge and it'll win the case. But that's how you argue, that's how you're taught to argue cases. And I think that sort of applies in some ways to us as counselors, because those are sort of the dimensions that we have to work with. We have to work obviously with the facts. That's always really important in our decisions. And we have to stay within the parameters of the law. But we're trying to make public policy. And so the interesting thing for us is that the courts aren't supposed to make public policy. They're supposed to just enforce the law. But we're the legislative branch, so we get to make the public policy. We get to make those decisions, even in spite of the law and the facts. Now we got to put all that together and go, okay, now what's really good public policy? What do we really want this to look like going forward? So we have a little bit of a different dynamics. It's complicated. It's some ways more difficult, because now there's no easy answer. You've got to take all this stuff and come up with a solution. But in my mind, that's what makes it the most fun. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's kind of my year on the council, looking at the differences in some of the other branches of government, how it works here, and it has been fun. I want to mention that there would be no Ward 3 town hall in December. We've canceled that. And then lastly, I wanted to thank our city manager for her report. I thought it was very thorough, and I always interested in the learning insight into the dynamics of how our city staff interacts with our council and the decisions that we try to make. So thank you for that. That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Franks?
Thanks, Mayor Paul. Well, first I wanted to take a moment to thank staff for the recent reorganization of the planning cases, but now separating those by ward. Sometimes those things don't seem like they'd make a big difference, but when you are supporting as many constituents as we do, everything that makes things more efficient is very much appreciated. So I wanted to let you guys know we appreciate that, and thanks for responding to that request. Also, I really wanted to acknowledge the direct response system, which has been, in my view, a huge hit. What that does is allows council to ask a question, and then the response is seen by all of council. That really helps us become much more educated, much more quickly. And I appreciate that Caitlin puts those out just so timely, and we're really able to follow all of those responses. And also for her being that single point of contact for the customer service. I think we are providing some of the best customer service to our folks. The turn time, the quality of the responses, I've been really impressed. That doesn't mean I don't have some on the hopper that I want to get further information on, but I certainly appreciate that. I would also at this time of year be remiss if I didn't say thanks to all of council. We are a lively and passionate bunch, and we are all very opinionated, and I appreciate all of the passion for the community and all of the hard work. We don't always agree, but I think we have done not a perfect job, but a really admirable job of staying above the fray. So I certainly wanted to acknowledge that. Also, this coming Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m., we do have the Ad Hoc Housing Committee will be having its final meeting. We will finalize the scope and purpose of the Housing Committee or Housing Policy Committee that will become a permanent committee. And so that will be 5:30 p.m. Upstairs, second floor. So please feel free to come if you would like. Regarding the annual planning meeting, that is going to be an all-day extravaganza, Saturday, January 26th. And in advance of that, I really want to encourage the community. That's where we set our yearly priorities. So we really do want to hear from you. We get in there and we really lay it all out. We're trying to figure out with limited resources of humans, limited resources of dollars. We're really trying to do our best work in there. And to that, Councilor Gutwein and I, we heard from the community several meetings ago where sustainability, they want us to invest more in sustainability. And I always find it's important to know, is that really a community priority? I know it's a priority for Councilor Gutwein and myself. We are passionate sustainability ladies, so we are all in personally. But we do have a survey that we put together, and we've both been posting it on Facebook. I'll also post it on Nextdoor. We ask, it's a handful of questions. It's also got an open comment box. We really need to hear from you. If we're going to get in there and we're going to try to convince the other 9 to put more resources towards this, it has to be a demonstrated community priority. So please look for the survey either on Facebook or Nextdoor, and that's it.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Roybal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one short note. I would like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And keeping in mind, I would like to remind people of pedestrian and auto accidents that are occurring in our city. Within the last 2 months, we've had 3 fatalities. So I would please ask, please use the crosswalks. Please use some kind of reflective tape or something where they can see you. Right now in our fine city, our sun sets about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it does get dark. So I would ask, please be careful. We want you here next year, and enjoy. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'd certainly like to echo that. We've had just quite an uptick of traffic fatalities, pedestrian and vehicle crashes. So folks, please slow down and take it easy. A couple seconds isn't going to mean a lot, but it can mean somebody's life. So that's going to be incredibly important. Congratulations, council, on your first year. It's been a great pleasure for those folks who just finished their first year, if you can believe that. It's gone by fast. So I certainly want to thank you and remind you that committee assignments, if you could get that back to me by December 15th of where you want to serve next year, that'd be great, as well as Mayor Pro Tem interest. And that can also happen on the floor, which would be January 7th will be that meeting, just to make sure, or 14th. So if you want to do that. Councilor Beta mentioned N3 Street, which is actually Nerd Street for the folks that like to do gaming, and it is something that's pretty special. I guess I really didn't realize how into this folks can be. They actually have a varsity sports program, and they mentioned a stat that said 65% of kids play some sort of sport, but 99.9% of kids play a video game. And their goal is to try to make access available to everybody. And the other key to that is by bringing people together, they're actually more face-to-face interactions than just being online and maybe being able to bully or treat people poorly. You're actually right next to that person. So they hope that this will start to change some of the culture. But it definitely blew our minds. Season's greetings. Happy New Year to everybody, to our great city employees and all the residents of our city. I want to share that. And we had a meeting with all the cities and the county, and the city managers have been tasked with trying to help deal and understand our homeless issues. And I'm proud to say the city is doing incredible things, especially through our community action team. And Ms. Hodson and her colleagues are now working on a homeless coordinator that will help us, as all the cities in the county, to really understand what resources are out there and how we can better address the homelessness in our community. Let's see what else here. I think that is about it. Two more fun things. You know, as we draw to a close of the year, last year I started my State of the City speech, and I talked about the issues of traffic and buildings and setbacks and the city growing. And I pulled those articles from 1969. And my goal was to say, we've been here before, our city's seen growth and change, and we're still a great city, and we're going to continue to be a great city as we move into 2019 and look at different ways to make sure that we are moving forward and being responsive and looking forward to another 50 years, because next year's the 50th anniversary. We also talked about being bold, and again, this community responded with a very bold decision to allow the city to debruce until 2025, which is going to have a direct impact on our community for years to come, with new dollars for parks and recreation, for streets, and for our police department. So we're thrilled about that, and I again want to thank the community. And I'll leave you with this. This is a fun part of my job, is going and talking to our kids in our schools, and it's amazing how smart our kids are and the cool things that they do. So I want to just leave you with a few things. And it's interesting because it really talks to how in tune the next generation is. These are third graders. So one of them wants us to get rid of cigarettes, which we're working on vaping. One would like us to bring back Toys R Us and Babies R Us, and Tegan has a good idea of how to do that. This one's pretty cool. Thank you for being our mayor. I had to say that one because I was the only one, but I wonder if we could make a community garden and each citizen would have a job and plant to take care of, and no one would go hungry. We could have a good citizens club and do good stuff for the community. So I thought that was pretty cool. This young lady, I have an idea to get rid of Fortnite. I think that's a game because a lot of people are addicted to it. I wonder if you could get rid of Fortnite, which I don't think I can get rid of Fortnite. Thank you for coming. I learned that your job is very important to me. I wonder if there could be a place where homeless people could go and get food and a nice bedroom to sleep in. Certainly something that we deal with every day up here. And I wonder if you could try to make it so there could be a human shelter for homeless people. As you know, that does not exist in the city of Lakewood or Jefferson County. And my favorite was, I learned that we are your boss. So thank you all very much. Michelle, anything? All right. Mr. Cox, Ms. Hodson. With that said, go forth, and thank you to our police agent. Thanks for keeping us safe back there. And we will adjourn at 7:54.